According to the official Pokémon lore, Kingler possesses a massive, oversized claw capable of generating 10,000 horsepower of crushing force. But that physical power comes with a severe biological drawback. The claw is so heavy and disproportionate that the creature frequently loses its balance and exhausts itself just trying to lift it. That specific piece of lore directly dictates how the creature functions mechanically, resulting in a highly skewed numerical game design. This chart shows Kingler's base stat distribution. Its attack stat boasts a massive spike of 130, jumping to 240 in Pokémon Go. But that peak is offset by abysmal lows. Special defense sits at a frail 50, and speed maxes at 75. This creates a classic glass cannon archetype, a unit designed to inflict massive damage quickly, but lacking the bulk or speed to survive a sustained engagement. Kingler had world-class power trapped in a frame that couldn't reliably deliver it. Resolving that mechanical disconnect would take developers nearly 20 years. During the 1990s, players competing on the original Nintendo Game Boy had to find highly specific ways to keep Kingler alive. Its primary survival tactic in Generation 1 was relying on teammates to paralyze opposing Pokémon, slowing them down enough for Kingler to safely use Swords Dance and fire off a devastating Hyper Beam. By the second generation, it was relegated to the lower competitive tiers. It functioned as a slow, physical defensive wall, mostly because it lacked a reliable physical water-type attack to actually utilize its massive strength. When developers eventually introduced the physical special split, a system update that categorized attacks based on contact rather than elemental typing, Kingler theoretically gained the ability to use its physical strength. But the systemic update failed to solve the underlying problem. Faster, more versatile water types like Floatzel and Feraligatr easily outpaced Kingler's mediocre speed, rendering it obsolete in battle. The most frustrating developmental tease arrived in Generation 5. Kingler was gifted an ability called Sheer Force, which removes secondary effects from attacks in exchange for a massive 30% damage boost. However, the developers denied Kingler access to Waterfall, the one specific physical water move it needed to actually trigger the Sheer Force ability. By Generation 6, Kingler remained a powerhouse on paper, rendered functionally useless in practice because of a single missing piece in its move pool. The turning point arrived in the modern competitive era with the release of the 7th generation of games. The developers finally added a move called Liquidation to Kingler's arsenal. It was a high-power, physical water-type attack with a secondary chance to lower the opponent's defense. This formula visualization breaks down exactly how the damage compounds with that new addition. The base damage of Liquidation triggers the 30% sheer force boost, and when combined with the 30% boost from a held life orb item, it creates an oppressive stacking multiplier. The resulting damage output was so extreme that Kingler was banned from the PU tier and forced up into the PUBL bracket. Meanwhile, a similar mechanical awakening occurred within the real-time ecosystem of Pokémon Go. The developers updated Kingler's mobile move pool with a fast-charging, high-damage attack called Crabhammer. Because Pokémon Go heavily prioritizes raw attack stats and move efficiency, this single addition caused Kingler to bypass legendary creatures like Kyogre, crowning it the #2 water-type damage dealer in the entire game. It even replicated that success in its Gigantamax form, where it currently ranks as a highly effective A-tier attacker in max battles. By finally granting Kingler the specific attacks it had lacked for years, the crab moved from a niche historical curiosity to a top-tier damage dealer across 2 entirely different game engines. Despite this offensive optimization, Kingler's structural flaws remain intact. It is still a fragile creature, highly vulnerable to grass and electric-type attacks. Game developers never erased Kingler's terrible defense or its sluggish speed. They simply provided the exact tools needed to weaponize its single extreme strength. Competitive viability rarely requires a perfectly balanced character. In this case, it just took 20 years for the game's mechanics to finally align with the original lore, giving the crab exactly what it needed to crush the competition.